Every 10 square kilometres throughout England there are ash trees.
The actual biomass of ash within England, throughout England, is enormous, and so many of them unfortunately sick and going to succumb to it.
The infection is within every county across the country. Some older specimen trees may be able to fight back, but then it'll be weakened and may at the same time have reduced resistancy should it get another pathogen or another sickness. The scientific name is Hymenoscyphus fraxineus. It starts off as a tiny little fungus, and this can start to be visible in June.
The fungus produces millions and millions of spores which are airborne, and they settle on the leaves, and it's through the leaf that the fungus actually gets into the ash tree. It co-evolved with ash trees out in Asia. It doesn't want to kill its host, it's parasitic, but it wants the tree to go on living. But the trees in Europe and in the UK just don't have any resistance to it. So unfortunately, if they get it, which most of them have now across the whole of the UK, it eventually just weakens the tree so much. Quite often with the tree in a weakened state, something else will kill it, whether that's honey fungus or some other pathogen that comes in.
What we wanted to do was create a series of experiences in which people would develop a relationship with the tree itself and understand what it means for that whole ecosystem to be disappearing from the landscape. So the project was funded in 2016 by Arts Council and Heritage Lottery. Over the 2 years we commissioned Ackroyd Harvey to do some research about ash trees and the historic and cultural kind of relationship we've had with ash. They started their research work with the intention of making a large-scale public artwork.
Our approach to art is very much shaped by the living environment.
A lot of the work we do relates to nature or natural processes of growth or decay. Often things are time-based and they shift and change.
We've also been looking at the science around why there is such sort of widespread infection and devastation to do with the ash tree.
As part of Ackroyd and Harvey's research process, we organised a number of trips to different specialists, and one of the important ones was visiting Alice Holt, the research centre run by the Forestry Commission.
It was first found in Poland in 1992, and it just damages the trees. The trees aren't used to it. But there are some that maybe appear to have a bit of resistance, so there's now a whole process that they're actually looking into that and trying to breed some trees. But when you're replacing a 200-300-year-old tree with a little whip, you know, we're going to lose an awful lot of tree.
And the fungus will produce these little fruit bodies which just almost look like tiny mushrooms. They're not related to that group of fungi, but you can just see them with the naked eye. But these little fruit bodies are not produced until the following year, so it seems to be quite important that the fungus has that overwintering phase in that little air, and then it releases these spores, and then they float on the air, get carried up, and then if they land on an ash leaf, then the cycle can commence again.
So Outdoor Studios are a group of artists who work with children to create education experiences in the outdoors, and they worked with the Ash Project to design an education program that charts the way sort of language might be lost if we lose ash, the kind of connections that we have to ash as a kind of creative material. So children were invited into the kind of woodlands, and they were encouraged to make drawings, create poems, create stories, and tell the kind of history of a giant ash tree. We also began a collaboration with the Whitstable Biennale to do a series of artist walks in ash landscapes. The walks were curated by Rose Thompson. We had artist walks from Hannah Lees, Adam Chodsko, the Walking Reading Group, and Fiona MacDonald and Marcus Coates. As an organisation, Kent Downs does a lot of community walks, and it's a really common way of getting people involved in the landscape. But these walks all had a slightly different approach. A good example is Marcus Coates and Fiona MacDonald did a project called Ask the Ash. So people were able to ask questions, and through a series of experts, they would answer the questions as though the ash tree was answering them. So we did a series of workshops across Kent which were designed to help people understand the history of the uses of ash. And so ash was traditionally a coppiced wood. We did a coppicing workshop with a group of students, and we also did green woodworking, in which we coppiced a tree and made things from the coppiced trees on site. And so people were really able to create memories that were personal to them. The exhibition was curated by Rose Thompson from the University of Kent and myself. It is a collection of artworks. Ackroyd Harvey made this amazing work that was a record of all of the place names in the UK that record ash or onan or any of the words that are associated in Gaelic or Welsh with ash. And so this record, this huge kind of wall chart of all of the names, the place names in the UK that had to do with ash. We did the exhibition 5 times, and in each of the exhibitions new works were added. The exhibition also included works by David Nash, and it started with a collection of objects that were made by Robert Penn. He felled an ash tree, and out of this single ash tree made over 137 objects.
It's been very encouraging. It's been nice to meet so many people who are of like mind, you know, who are interested in the ash, something deeply rooted in our culture.
The environment, the cultural thing, bringing them together, having a chance to talk about them. Because when you go out for a walk, you're often having all these sort of lovely ideas going through your head, but you're not nattering to people about it, and it's nice to bring the two things together.
I'm very impressed by the archive. I'm very impressed by the generosity of artists like David Nash to see work of that quality alongside of work that's been produced throughout the project. And I've been on a few of the walks as well, so I'm a fan, you can tell.
One of the highlights of our public programme was working with Alex Metcalf, who's an artist and designer based in Cornwall, who has designed a device that allows you to listen to the inside of the tree. So you can hear the sap rising up into the upper branches.
There was something that was capturing our imagination around the fact that when an ash tree is infected, as part of its defense mechanism, it puts out shoots. So they almost look like it's shooting out these kind of arrows from itself. It's called epicormic growth. So somehow this sense of the tree being under fire from this disease, and yet at the same time trying to defend itself. We wanted to work with a tree that had been infected. We wanted it to be a large sculpture to hold itself within the landscape.
We settled on this idea of these 2 monolithic trees.
One has been totally stripped of its bark, and then it's almost like a polarised white colour, glows almost. The other tree we actually set to with blowtorches, and we've burnt it.
And then each tree has about 6,000 holes drilled in it. Each one of those holes is going to have these ash arrow staves hammered into it and stuck into it. It's a beautiful area of the land here, looking out over Kent. It's a wonderful view, but then with these 2 monolithic trees, one shadowing the other one, you really start to feel that they are playing off each other.
I think the sculptures are amazing. I'm interested in the role of public sculpture in communal spaces like this and how they can change our perceptions of place. And I think, as with the sculpture behind us here, it completely changes how we interact with the place we're in and our idea of the view.
I thought it was evocative actually, and I'm rather delighted that there is a sort of recognition of vitally part of our heritage, trees and the ash tree, and it's paying homage to that and making it out of something very special, quintessentially English as part of our landscape.
Absolutely fantastic. It was about celebrating something that's gone so uncelebrated. The ash tree is not particularly spectacular, it's not big and not flamboyant, and it's not beautiful colour in the autumn, but it's so central. So I was very happy to see it celebrated with such an amazing project.
I was startled. I think seeing the 2 together, I hadn't realised there were going to be 2, and to see, you know, the more natural one with the charred one, and in the location just against the backdrop of the Kent Downs. Yeah, really good tingle factor.
And quite a few people today have been speaking about the role of the ash tree in their childhood. And I think that's quite interesting, is that sculptures like this give us an opportunity to reflect and be more contemplative about places rather than just look at an attractive view and then keep walking. It's a space for contemplation.
Ash is a huge part of the Kent Downs and it will make a huge change. So we hope that the Ash project has helped people see that that's happening. What will happen if ash dieback's just left to its own devices is that sycamore and species that colonise will take ash's place, but that won't be as good as if we encourage a kind of more diverse woodland, because that's how we will help recover from diseases like this in the future.